Hi, Donna. So Donna, if you can hear me, I see you're still muted. We're the only two people here right now. So the meeting probably won't start in 2 minutes. It might start in 5 minutes.
You start when you would get ready. I don't have a problem.
Yeah, well, like I said, right now, for this moment in time, it's only you and me.
Right.
And that's okay. Oh, and Teresa.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, Teresa.
Hi, Teresa.
Oh, you're muted.
Hi, Laura. Hi, Donna.
Hi.
So it's just us right now.
Are we already started YouTube already?
We did.
Okay.
Well, we did in theory anyway.
Okay.
I never know. I
I
theoretically.
know I was going to comment on an email that came in today.
Oh, yeah, no. I mean, yes, if you don't mind whoever's watching, wherever they're watching.
I'll send you an email just to follow up on it.
That's fine. So. Hey, Steve's here. For a minute, I was worried that I'd be, well, not that worried because I could go home, but worried that I'd be the only one here, but I'm not. Hi, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Hi, Teresa. Did you see my response?
Yes, I did.
Thanks for letting me know about that.
Yeah. Laura, I think I had you on there also, Laura.
About the new motion.
Yeah, I assume that's Richard's group that
Yeah.
got that through. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember the whole thing that happened. John Arnold was very frustrated when that came through the planning and zoning committee.
And we haven't convened yet. I mean, I think we can flip the order of things if you want. It would come under follow up to blah, blah, blah previous. No, but I have something to say about the Allen Co site.
Great. I don't have any desire to discuss that motion.
All right. All right. So I'll just make my comment under general public comments. It's 7:01. Can we wait till 7:02 at least, maybe 3?
I don't know. That's asking a lot.
I know.
Hello, Steve.
Hey, Donna.
How are you doing?
Now that I got you to laugh, I'm doing great.
Okay.
So Don, I did change your name again, but I don't know if you have a camera or not. Maybe you don't care. Donna has a new computer.
Congratulations.
I don't know about that.
She's
Great.
it's baby steps. So
What
Maybe
kind of computer did you get?
a Lenovo.
that's a good. Lenovo is pretty good.
It's just that my son is doing most of the setup, and mine.
Great.
And
This is what young people are for.
that's how I feel. I agree. So he needs to fix that part of it, but we'll be good.
Yeah. I mean, there's always gonna be glitches,
Yeah.
with computer.
We did it once and it went right back to Westa.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Well,
Yeah.
you know, well, you don't know, but because I share the computer, not this computer, well, because I'm on different Zoom accounts and do UNNC, I do my own, and attend meetings as Laura Myers, but also David Raposa, because I'm using that computer. So sometimes when I log into a meeting, it's not me and I can't change it. I mean, on something like this, we can change ourselves. But
Yeah.
I end up at commission meetings saying, that's, I'm not UNNC today, I'm just Laura, or something, which takes a good chunk of the minute. So anyway, it's 7:03. Let us just begin. So today's a little crazy and I didn't bring the flash drive, so I'm gonna be trying to share the screen using what Teresa does so easily, which is Edge through our website stuff. So I'm going to try and do that. But anyway, I'm Laura Myers and I am the chair of UNNC's Planning and Zoning Committee. And let's each of us introduce ourselves and then I'll share the screen with the agenda. Starting with Teresa.
Hey, everybody, I'm Teresa Masonette. I live in the Avenues, and if we vote on anything, I'm a stakeholder.
Steve.
Steve Peckman, I live in Jefferson Park and I am a stakeholder.
And Donna.
Donna Jones, I live in West Adams Avenues and I am a stakeholder.
And of course, I'm a stakeholder. And this might be easy. So this, if you can see the agenda, I'm saying this for the benefit of those on YouTube. Our UNNC standing rules for committee stakeholder voting, as you saw, we just each of us explained that we were stakeholders. The way UNNC sets up its committees, we appoint their chairs or co-chairs, but beyond that, anyone who is an actual stakeholder is invited to fully participate in each committee meeting. And that means not just in the discussions, but they may make a motion and they may vote if they are a stakeholder, which is somebody who lives, works, worships, attends school, is the parent of someone who attends school, owns a business, owns a property, whether or not they live in the property, and or is somebody engaged and participatory in a nonprofit 501c3 organization which has a brick and mortar address within UNNC. So we're all stakeholders here tonight. And we're reviewing the agenda. It's a very brief agenda. We have general public comments and then just some remarks about a public hearing that is scheduled for next Wednesday, January 28th. UNNC has not, the board has not taken an action on this. We did discuss it once at this committee and we'll just kind of review that discussion. And then follow up to previous cases. I have an update regarding 1638 Bronson. And I think generally speaking, we have some updates on the objective design standards and anything else that needs an update. It's welcome. So that is the agenda. I'm gonna take it down, stop the share, and ask if there are any general public comments at this point. So I have one. It's just sort of interest. So there's been some recent motions at City Council regarding oil drilling and still attempting to end it in Los Angeles. But in the meantime, yesterday, there was an actual hearing or public meeting generated by the state of California, and there was an HPOZ meeting, unfortunately overlapping a little bit on the Allen Co. drill site, which is at 23rd, just west of Figueroa. So basically the Mount St. Mary's campus is the far corner of the campus. And Allen Co., the company, apparently, I'm not surprised, but is totally insolvent. So the cleanup, the shutdown and the cleanup is being handled by the city and other governmental agencies. So it's been expressed that that's potentially a problem, but here it is an actual situation. So that is what I wanted to bring up. Oh, Hakeem is here coming, so that's interesting. So Hakeem is joining our meeting from Council District 10. So that was my general public comment. Does anybody else, Steve?
So just in response to that, and I think you were alluding to it, Laura.
Right, but now we need to, since we have one more person joining, in response to what I said.
Response
Oil.
to what you said about the Allen Co site.
For
And-
oil.
And this is about the city council's process for trying to shut down all the oil sites. The community warned planning extensively in the last round that there were no provisions to ensure that companies are paying into a fund at a rate that is commensurate with what the current prices would cost for toxic cleanup.
Right.
And that the city would be left holding the bag when these sites were shut down if they don't plan for this. And so what's happening with Allen Co, as you described, appears to be exactly what the community was trying to warn the city about several years ago.
So,
So
yeah,
it's no surprise.
I was surprised, but not surprised to hear that they're insolvent. You know, hear from people who went to the meetings last night that they're insolvent. City, I'm gonna say city et al, because I think probably other agencies are stepping in to clean up the site. So, I wasn't at those meetings, so I don't know exactly what that price tag is, or even if that was discussed. But anyway, so that's my general public comment. Okay. Anything else for under public comments? And if not, I'm gonna bring back the screen share and take a look at the language I have on this item 3, that there's a public hearing scheduled for next Wednesday. I'm not gonna read the whole case number, but essentially there's a business college on the corner of Western and Cambridge, and then it extends sort of deep into east on Cambridge Street. This is in North Harvard Heights. And I want to say 15 years ago, there was a lot of controversy because they kept buying adjacent houses and expanding the college uses into the residential zone. And subsequently, the houses that were there were sold and they're back reduced into the commercial space. But the application for us now is to request a conditional use permit to convert some of the business college facility into daycare. So what the original description was whole buildings, but it now appears that 2 of the buildings will remain adult business college education on the 2nd floor and have daycare only on the 1st floor. We never brought this to governing board, nor has the applicant reached out to us. So 2 issues. The hearing is next Wednesday, like 9 a.m. The only issue that was brought up at our previous meeting, I'm going to stop the share and pull up the plans if I can do that. Essentially, the only issue was that the plans do not show anything for pickup and drop off. Meaning, what's the traffic control for the daycare? Because surely there ought to be, I mean, these are little kids, so one would hope that some of the parking lot would be converted to where a parent can drop off their kids. So that was the only issue that was brought up to us previously.
So there is a parking lot. Is that part of the operation?
Yeah, the parking lot is part of the operation, but what we don't see, if you look carefully, is any sort of, I guess you might call it a loading zone. Drop off, I mean, there's parking, but there doesn't seem to be a place where, unless the plan is, and I guess I can hear that when I attend the hearing, since they didn't come and present, unless the plan is that every single parent parks on the parking lot, and gets out of the car because their kid's in the back seat I mean, it's entirely possible this is the plan. Your kid's strapped in the back seat, so they got to get the kid out and walk them into the daycare. I don't know, because there's nothing in the application or the plans. You know, the main thing I'm concerned about would be safety on their parcel, but also that there's not drop off pickup. I doubt there is on Cambridge itself, since it's a really narrow, highly parked, you know, they'd be in the middle of, you know, blocking traffic. They'd be double parked to do that.
So there's that existing parking lot on Western, right?
No, this parking lot is off of Cambridge. Western
But isn't
is,
there a parking lot on Western next to the Pacific University building?
there is not. It's on, you're thinking of the next. They also own or owned past tense. The next street north is 15th Street. And they owned a house, they may still own a house on that parcel, and it does have a parking lot, but I believe it's a new ownership, different ownership at this point.
Okay, next to the old teriyaki place, there's not a parking
There
lot?
he is, but they don't own it.
So that doesn't come with the Pacific University building?
Correct, and you don't see
Got
it here on the plans. It used to be a park, that was an administration building. And again, they were ordered because it was a residential zone. Parking wasn't residential, but the parcel that the parking was attached to belonged to the house. The house was in a residential R2 zone. So
Okay.
it was, like I said, it was a big deal 15 years ago. Harvard Heights Neighborhood Association spent a huge amount of time and effort to undo that which had never been done with permits. In other
Right.
words, they bought a lot of homes, but they never did. And it's, I don't think it is still Pacific States, to be honest. I think
No,
there's,
they're on Wilshire now.
right, I think it's even a different owner. And they're calling it an adult business school, and previously it was not exact. I mean, I think it's a completely different owner. And a
Right.
different, somewhat different function. From a planning and zoning point of view, it's the same function. It's, you know, adults going to college, but the prior use was more like a small version of Arizona State University satellite in LA downtown, only it was for foreign students. It wasn't an adult business college, it was more of a college.
So the main concern you have is the safety of the children in the drop off and pickup and how that's going.
Safety of the children in the drop off and pickup, and that it's clear that they cannot do drop off and pickup in the street on Cambridge.
Right. Right. Well, that would definitely be a safety concern, wouldn't it?
Sure. So, and that was a concern brought to us.
Okay.
I mean, I'm concerned too, I'm bringing it back. So, what I'm planning to do with not much authority at the moment, because we already voted that, but we didn't take it to governing board. I didn't realize this was happening so quickly. So I have no real authority to speak on behalf of UNNC because we didn't vote on it. Is just point out what was brought to our concern and say we're happy to vote on this at our next board meeting if the case file will still be open, and would like to hear from the applicant if they hadn't already described this, you know, what their plans are for this function. I'm not deeply troubled by the combination of uses because it sounds like, you know, they're going to do upstairs for business adults and downstairs for daycare.
Laura, do we know the age range for daycare?
We do not,
Okay.
but I am making an assumption that it would be up to, but not including TK, because now all public schools are mandated to provide transitional kindergarten.
Well,
I could be wrong.
the reason why I mention that is because I can't imagine a parent pulling up, double parking and just telling their kid to get out and
I
walk
agree.
in.
I
So
agree.
maybe they are going to use that parking area where the parent parks, unloads their child from the car seat, and walks
Right.
them in, signs them in
Right.
to care.
I'm thinking maybe that's exactly right, but there's nothing on plans or in the application describing that.
Yeah, it needs to be explained.
Right, because it's a conditional use permit. So
Right.
that's why it needs to be a part of the conditions essentially. Because remember, this can transfer with a, the use for youth can transfer. And so you can, even though it's called daycare, that's not exactly the use, I don't think. Meaning I think you could end up having, say, age
Like an
6.
after-school program.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, or a, vacation, summer vacation program or winter vacation program for slightly older kids. So that's not what seemingly they're applying for, but the use could probably transfer without much of another conditional use permit. So it just needs to be addressed. I don't, this is not significantly
You
controversial.
need this committee to take an action?
We kind of already did the first time.
Okay, so
But I'm
this is
telling you
just
what
FYI?
this is an FYI.
Okay,
And well, an update, because on the agenda, if anybody wants to attend the hearing, the Zoom link is on the agenda. So that's the main thing. And it's at 9 a.m. on Zoom with the link that's on our agenda next Wednesday, January 28th. And it's the first item on the ZA's agenda for that day. So it's going to be on time.
okay.
So
Thank you.
And since we've already submitted something, you'll be able to ask questions or.
no, we haven't submitted anything, but these are somewhat casual hearings at the zoning administration. So yeah, I can ask, I can ask the question. I just have to make clear, because probably unlike any other neighborhood council, we are good at this. I have to make clear we haven't voted. And I will. So that's it on that. Okay. I'm guessing Hakeem is here for our updates. So I'm gonna quickly share one more time and then unshare. Again, this was a brief agenda. Our next item is follow-up to previous cases. It's our new normal follow-up to previous cases. Whatever was in the ENS and old business discussion and possible action. And I called out 2 updates, but any other follow-up to any other cases, fine to discuss. So the first thing is that Hakeem arranged a really great meeting with the community on Bronson Avenue and planning department officials last, Friday late afternoon. So we had a pretty, well, first of all, respectful, dynamic, and pretty deep discussion with the planning department. This is the project that is proposed at the corner of Johnny Cochran Way, which is like 17th Street, and Bronson Avenue. And there's a 4-unit little bungalow court on that corner that's proposed for demolition, and then a 5-story new 100% affordable housing. And we all saw an updated version. It may have been further updated since. We saw an updated version in December. And it may have, from a design perspective, helped with a few of the concerns, but the neighbors were primarily concerned not just with the height, character of the building, but with the traffic issues that they already have compared to what they're worried they will be further issues when a large new housing structure without parking is inserted into their neighborhood. As you know, there's not a whole lot of things we can do about parking for either 100% affordable or for a building that is within a certain radius of a high volume traffic intersection, which this one is. It's near Crenshaw and Venice, so it's in that radius. But one of the big concerns is that, and Hakeem can jump in anytime if he wants to, if he thinks I'm explaining this wrong. One of the big concerns that we express, but also neighbors, is that the utilization of state law AB 2334, which we think they are relying on, the plans say they are relying on for a number of the incentives that they're requesting. AB 2334 states, if you read it all the way through, it's for very low volume very low traffic volume areas. And this is not a very low traffic volume area. Sort of a disconnect. Oops, yeah, my internet connection is showing as unstable. So
Yeah, you
I,
froze a couple times.
so sorry. Well, I can't do anything about it because I'm sitting here at South Sea's house. Over the weekend, I went back through, looked at the plans that we have, which again, may not be the current plans. And on the plans, they've listed X number, I think 7 requests for relief from certain, waivers and incentives. And then I also parsed through the actual Arlington Heights character residential CPIO, and my math was different. So they were asking for 7 on plans. The planning staff person, Isaiah, said words out loud that staff thinks they've asked for 5. That I know that that's incorrect because that's not what the plans show. But I counted 13 requests. It might be 12, and they can fix a couple of those requests with just some design tweaks. But it's a pretty high number of requests for incentives and waivers. I'm personally very concerned that, well, about two things. 2 other things that what we had talked about was the cafeteria style, selecting which laws they're following instead of just picking one program and following it. They were some here, some there. So there's AHIP, which I still don't fully understand, and there's AB 2334. And picking and choosing from both. And then how that may or may not overcome the rules of the CPIO, which state on certain requests, not all of them, but on certain requests for relief, you have to have an exception, which is like a variance, and the exception has to be approved by the planning commission, not by staff. So I do not know for sure if our new 100% affordable housing kind of laws overcome that stipulation in the CPIO or not. At what point is it too much of an ask? So that was pretty much what all the discussion was. And then I did a follow-up email memo yesterday.
What did planning respond to that discussion?
Well, isn't it nice? Oh, in the discussion or to the email?
Well,
I guess
no,
it should
you
say-
said that in the discussion, this cafeteria style use of the rules was discussed, and I'm curious as to how planning responded to that concern.
Well, it was interesting because Lisa Weber was at this meeting, and she is the deputy director, a deputy director. There's several, but she's the one who's oversees case processing. I'm just using generic words. And she did say that she is gonna, because she is not on a day-to-day basis looking at this plan or anybody else's for that matter, she would look into it and follow up. So I'm sure we're going to get a follow up on that. But beyond that, they didn't really, they were listening, but I feel like they were actively listening. We're all on screen. Sometimes you can tell when someone's like looking at their phone. That was not what was, they weren't doing that. They were actively listening and being respectful. But in sort of a sideways answer to your question, they had not ever responded to UNNC's letter of December 11th or 12th. Remember, we sent a batch of letters on different topics in that week of December. And I don't have a response from staff to my yesterday's email either, although I have some responses from other neighbors. But that does, that at 50 cents, we'd be lucky to get a cup of coffee. So.
Great summary, Laura. I also felt like it was a really interesting conversation because it really did challenge some of like the interpretations of the state laws and the layers of what is a base component of zoning and what is a specific layer, and do the state laws supersede all of those layers, and the interpretation as of right now is that it does, but it's a great question if the authorities for those exceptions in the specific plans have a different decision maker. How do you make it administrative, to Laura's point? It's a fantastic question.
Right, but do you think we'll ever get an answer?
I think we will. I'll keep pushing them on it.
Okay, yeah, because I mean, it just concerns me. I mean, when I say it concerns me, it's they're not doing anything. And this is a broad they. They Vince, they Lisa, they Ken Bernstein. They're not doing anything to make real the statements that they made to the community and to the city council in 2017 and 2018, when these character residential overlay districts were adopted, and they're continuing to be adopted because the Hollywood community plan also has them. And unlike Arlington Heights, the ones in South LA and the ones in Hollywood are very clear that these are historic preservation districts. I see no reason why, even with all the state laws about not having new historic districts, these aren't new. They've been adopted. They just aren't being called historic districts in ZMIS. And I don't know why they cannot take that step, since that is what they, this is the basis upon which they were created and the basis upon which the ordinances were written. And with the exception of Arlington Heights, there's language within the CPIOs. Arlington Heights a little less so. It was the first one. It has a map showing historic structures, but it doesn't have this sort of preamble about it being to protect historic structures. But they could take those steps, even if it wouldn't help on this one project. It might have helped, it might not have helped, but they're not even in ZMIS. When you pull it up, it says historic preservation, no. And even under the CPIO, it says historic preservation, no, and it should be a yes for all of them except maybe Arlington Heights, but even then. And they have, the planning department has the ability to go back to city council and say, you've already adopted ordinances, but because of the new state laws, we need to make clear that this is what that meant. Just go ahead and overlay it like that. I think 100% affordable will still trump a lot of the protections, but not every project's 100% affordable that we're dealing with, at least within the CPIOs. So, but I really appreciate, honestly, it must have been very hard for Hakeem to get this all pulled together. Appreciate that we actually had the meeting that the neighbors had been asking for. And so thank you.
My pleasure. And we have more work to do. So we're requesting for planning to report back on the question about the exceptions, as well as the specific plan hierarchy of jurisdiction. And then they will write back in formal replies requested from their deputy director, Lisa Weber, who oversees project planning. And the staff working on this is city planner Kyle Winston and city planner Isaiah Ross, who have been very helpful in this process in terms of responding to our request for information and highlighting things and deficiencies in the application that ultimately triggered the hold. So we've made progress. There's more work to do.
So Hakeem, I didn't want to be like railing, because I had just, in my memo I wrote, I just said thank you for being respectful, for having a meeting. So I didn't want to then go nasty, but I am really concerned that they think there was only 5 requests for incentives and or waivers, when, I could come up with 13, and again, maybe it's 12. And then with some design changes, maybe it could be 11 or 10, but it's never going to be 5. Because, so I'm concerned about how they're counting things.
Yeah, that's one of the questions we asked as well. How are they counting the incentives? Yeah.
Yeah, so I hope the memo I wrote that kind of picked up the language of each thing and then said, this is number one, this is number two. It may not be the order you guys would, you all planners would count them in, but I numbered them. So I'm hoping that
I saw
that way works. That's all I can say.
I saw that.
Yeah. All right. Hi, Michael. Thank you for joining.
Yeah,
any-
hi. My daughter has jujitsu classes.
Well, I'm very happy that UNNC has parents of children, because it turns out that when we look at our demographics, which Nuriel and I are beginning to do, we do have a lot of parents with children in our demographics. So it's a good thing to have that on our board as well, even if it makes it complicated to get people to meetings.
Well, if you find her father, let me know because he owes me money.
I see. Okay, well, are there any questions on this one? We're discussing 1638 Bronson. So, Hakeem, could you stay when we now discuss objective design standards for a minute, please?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. So, UNNC also wrote a letter to the planning department regarding a lot of stuff on this recent proposal, this recent initiative that the city is undertaking to develop objective design standards for, and this is where it now gets murky, for ADUs. We think that's really happening. Maybe for the missing middle. Certainly for HPOZs, but maybe only for infill housing, or maybe for more than that, because it's unclear. And so, and there's been to date still not really any public outreach, and they need to be done with this project and at city council by June. So both Steve and I separately and to different agencies have done public records requests, because what we had heard in, circa early December, late November, was that the planning department had gone to SCAG, which is the Southern California Association of Governments, through their, what they're calling REAP 2 grant program, and that REAP is spelled the same as our REAP, REAP, but has nothing to do with nuisance properties and rent escrow program. And I don't even know what the acronym stands for, but they're giving money to city governments, to city planning departments, to do planning work towards ordinances. And the city had applied for a $2.4 million grant through this program. This has been going on, I now know, for several years, because I did a public records request with SCAG, and they had asked for a lot of those funds, the 2.4 million, to do community plan updates, but they were turned down for that. And they had also, within that original request, asked also for money to help them devise this program that they're calling the Missing Middle LA. And that seemingly intrigued SCAG, and they said, let's expand on that. So the expansion has been to add objective design standards. And again, it starts getting murky, because depending on which version of the materials that they presented to SCAG, and subsequently other materials they presented to city council, and I think in a consent item, it's described differently every single time. And it seems, Steve is going to be able to input in a minute, but it seems that they're even saying both the phrase historic districts and the phrase HPOC. One of the things UNNC had requested was that they do really quickly, a whole lot better public outreach. Another thing we requested was that when they look at HPOZs, that they not look at them as one size fits all. Because although when we're sitting here, our HPOZs may be kind of similar to each other, but even not exactly here, because the lot sizes in Jefferson Park are teeny compared to the lot sizes, say, in Lafayette Square or the Avenues or Kinney Heights. So if one of the objective standards is going to be something as simple as lot coverage, it's going to be a problem to make a single objective standard. But then when you move out across the entire city, what we pointed out is now if you're looking at Stonehurst, which is out by, Sunland, Tahunga, or if you're looking at the Gregory Ain mid-century modern complex in Mar Vista, complex HPOZ, they've got nothing in common design-wise with the older center city HPOZs. So we ask that they make sure that it's not a few one-size-fits-all objective standards. Beyond that, we also said you have to do standards for all of the other kinds of historic districts, which include National Register, California Register, I'm using my fingers to count. The Community Redevelopment Agency established a whole bunch of historic districts through the consent process with the State Office of Historic Preservation. So there's those. There's some federal, also, Colleen could give me the language, but when the feds are spending money on a public project, they sometimes create by consent, other national registers.
So there's National Register listed and National Register determined eligible.
Right, by consent though. Some are just determined eligible by a consultant.
Determined eligible means that SHPO has concurred.
SHPO has concurred.
So if you use the term determined eligible,
with
that
capital
means,
D, capital E.
that means that SHPO has concurred.
Got it. And then of course, once again, our CPIOs, because the character residential overlay zones or districts says in the ordinance will not have a preservation plan and shall be evaluated according to the Secretary of Interior standards, which are not objective. So our letter said, so you need to have, since the state says you have to have objective standards, and it seems like the deadline is June, you can't orphan all of these other areas. So we have not heard that. We now know even more things, like I said, because we started doing public records requests and found even more contradictions. And also Kevin Keller, for unknown reasons, also spoke to the Planning Commission about not this effort, but just the general effort to have objective standards. And he said that they're working on it for everybody because the law does not allow them to have some objective standards and not for all. So that's a different thing he said to the Planning Commission that I coincidentally got a transcript of for a different reason. So then we learned, and then Steve got invited and he can pick up from here, that what we're just finished doing this month, instead of public outreach, they did hand-selected focus groups. Steve, I'm handing this over to you to say what those were. Can we? Yes, Michael.
Quick question. Who is riding herd over all of this that you just discussed?
Ken Bernstein, maybe.
Oh,
Steve, let's Steve, because we're not done. It's just I have to hand it over because there's a reason he'll tell you.
I didn't really plan to talk about this.
But I know.
What
But
did
you participated in one of these focus groups,
Yeah.
right?
So I participated in the very first focus group. And the focus group was facilitated by John Boari. He didn't have a lot of specific information. There was no one from planning or any other city agency as part of this process. I should say that all the participants in the focus group brought up independently, without except for one of them maybe, without really knowing what our concerns were that were sent to planning by UNNC. And we're in total agreement with them, including the last item you brought up, Laura, which is what we've called historic orphans from this plan. I don't, I mean, so the
But it was
focus,
only like 6 people, right?
yeah, but that was fine. And I would say that a 6-person focus group is actually a good size because it allows everyone to participate and to be heard in multiple items. I think that the participation was really good. In my group was Jean Frost from Waha, and she, of course, is incredibly knowledgeable about many of these issues. And I was also fortunate to be part of a group that included Adrian Scott Fine, who is the head of LA Conservancy. So both of them were incredibly knowledgeable. Unfortunately, one of the people in part of our focus group really had no experience. He's part of a HPOZ that's about to come online, which is Wellington Square. And then there was Angelino Heights. Of course, they were one of the first HPOZs, if not the first. But I think everyone shared the same concerns that participated in the focus group. It wasn't like there was any disagreement among the participants about the need to create either HPOZ specific or area specific objective design standards for all the reasons that you outlined and more. One of the other things that was brought up is even if planning is able to come up with a checklist of objective design standards for any specific HPOZ, that planners don't have the local knowledge of the environment to be able to make sure that what they're checking off actually makes sense and that they should go to the HPOZ board. And that the other part of it going to the board is that by having a ministerial checklist, it excludes the community that's going to be directly impacted by such a project. And everyone agreed on that as well, is that the HPOZ boards needed to be included in these processes. So there was talk about, is it even possible to create an objective design standard that was citywide? And I think there was pretty broad agreement that would be a Herculean task that they couldn't possibly get to in the time allotted. And even then it probably wouldn't work for the reasons and more that you already brought up. So that's kind of a broad overview.
Right.
I thought it was a productive discussion. I thought Mr. Boari did a good job facilitating the meeting, but there was really all the points that UNNC brought up in its letter were covered at that meeting. I didn't even have to bring them up mostly. We also talked about affordability and the fact that when we're talking about affordable housing, we're really not talking about affordability for people who are low income or very low income or extremely low income. We're talking about, people who are making $83,000, $85,000 a year minimum. So, and that there needed to be a way to protect the people that are in natural occurring, as UNNC has framed it, affordable housing, that they not lose their housing in favor of housing that they could no longer afford that's now called affordable. If we do that, then we're defeating the entire purpose of this project. It's undermining everything. And again, there was no argument against that by anybody. So I'll try to keep it short. I mean, I can go on forever on this.
Yeah. Well, and they had another meeting with official HPOZ board member reps. So the meeting Steve was at would be preservation advocates.
Yeah.
Leadership. And then there was an HPOZ board member meeting, but that only had 5 or 6 people at it as well. And it just by coincidence turned out all to be, again, this part of town, almost all Council District 10. There was also, with the exception of Adams Normandy's architect, was participating. So there's apparently a total of 4. And the third one, I don't know if these have happened yet or not, was going to be design professionals. And the fourth one was going to be housing advocates.
4 meetings in 7 days was the plan.
So the first day was last Monday, so this could be the last day today, or yesterday or the day before. So to put this in a larger context, one of the things we had put in our letter, and we've now learned some more things, is that has planning department looked at the cities that have already adopted objective design standards for historic districts? And those include San Francisco and Sacramento, and then, some small cities, Fremont, Solvang, but, they are trying to retain their Danish core. But a person who was not invited to participate in any of the groups is an architect who also used to work at CRA, John Kaliski. And he's apparently done 4 for, again, smaller cities. So there's a lot of other cities that have taken, this is not new news. The state law was adopted a couple of years ago.
Why
So-
would he not be included? Is he an LA person?
He lives in Hancock Park. We don't know why he wasn't invited. The planning department handpicked, it wasn't random. The planning department handpicked who the participants were to be. And Jean Frost had written in, once she learned that you could, write in and suggested John, and they said no. And she had talked to John and learned that he's already done for some other city clients 4. But have we meaning we LA, have we even looked at any of these? And I don't know the answer. They were not that hard to find. The first 4, San Francisco, Sacramento, Solvang, and Fremont, I've found just by talking to people, and I have them, I downloaded them. They haven't responded to our letter, so I don't know the answer to that question. I do know that what I'm thinking they need to do by June, and the only thing I think they could possibly even achieve by June, is not the actual standards, but a template that could be applied to each historic district. So a template that says you shall include in your objective standards the front setback, in other words, define what they are, define how you do them mathematically so it's objective. But I don't see how they can accomplish anything else that would be satisfactory to anyone who lives in a historic district or and so they're not even addressing at this point additions to historic properties, by the way.
That's
And
right.
They may or may not be addressing, because this is where it gets murky, build construction on our commercial corridors.
We did
Next
discuss
year.
that. We did discuss that during
Yes,
my,
but the application seems to exclude it. That's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say. Because the application, they seem to be trying very hard and very fast, having to pivot to fit their request for the money into the program that SCAG is funding. So it didn't, and so they seem to be moving. Steve, you haven't received anything yet, right? You made the request.
So for my Public Records Act, it's been drawn out. They met each of the deadlines. And now they have told me they will provide the information to me by January 28th.
Okay, cool. A week from now. Yeah, so I'm just concerned broadly that I don't see how they're gonna meet this June deadline, number one, in any way that we could possibly think is gonna be good. And kind of the broadest joke of all, if one wanted to have a joke, is what they're trying to do based on the state law. It's objective versus subjective standards. An objective standard is something that everyone, no matter who they are, if they're evaluating something, would be in agreement as to what the result would be. So that, in other words, this isn't one they're going to use, but if they were to say all front yard setbacks must be 15 feet. Well, everyone understands that sentence, that all front yard setbacks will be 15 feet. You can't interpret that. Subjective is where 3 different people could bring their own experience to reading whatever application is and come to a different conclusion. So the big problem is they're mostly saying they want to apply this to the missing middle. Well, there is no objective agreement on what the missing middle is. You know, they're defining it maybe as a building typology, but most people define the missing middle as more of an economic or social construct, i.e. the middle class. And to start this whole program from the missing middle, where there's not agreement across the nation or even across the city as to what it means, kind of is a joke. I see Hakeem now wants to say something.
Oh,
Yep.
can I just say
think-
one thing?
Wait. Well, Hakeem wanted to say something.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the definition of the missing middle, it does have its economic, history with the term, but in planning and architecture, the massing scale is what they're really talking about.
Right.
So they're talking about like, small house, big house, small apartment building, medium apartment building, big apartment building, skyscraper.
And bungalow.
Yeah, and bungalow court fits in there with like the small typology. So the city's investing right now. And if you haven't seen the presentation, I can get that for your board.
No, we've seen it. Actually,
Okay.
I pulled it down and made everyone watch it in November. Just saying, it's like, here it
Okay.
is, gonna watch it, I know.
But yeah, I think it has
Yeah.
it has the nuances of like a better, more sensible scaling of development when you start to think about historic districts. We have examples
Right,
of historic homes that were improved with density up to like 20 units, and you still drive by and you're like, whoa, that's just looks like a garage. But
yeah,
there's ways to
1808
do it.
St. Andrews, yes, there, 1808 St. Andrews, hopefully we're gonna see a presentation next meeting.
Yeah,
But Hakeem, that's all true, but it's still not an in other words, what the city is now saying, this is it, is still not an objective standard, because there's gonna be planners from other cities, meaning under the meaning of the state law. Objective
yeah. So
means
you got to just stay on top of it.
everyone agrees.
You
And,
got to get the planners on top of like actual architecture terminology. So like
right,
that's where our plans are kind of like vapid, is that they don't specifically say you have to have a 35-degree gable roof with, like
Right.
some kind of pillar of this assortment that has a porch that extends. Those kinds of like narrow details. That's what
Right.
they mean by objective.
right. And
So
then one
those
other
aren't
thing,
in
and then, yeah, one other thing, and then I'll go to Steve. One of the things that they have in one version of their description of this program, so again, you have to understand, there's so many different versions of what they are telling different audiences they're doing. So what they told SCAG they're doing is not identical to what they told city council, but it seems, again, I think it was a consent, not a presentation. It's just going from place to place, but one of the things they are saying is to, for SB9, so when you have a lot that you're dividing into more than one lot, how do you design for that? But now there's another initiative in Sacramento that would forbid the application of objective design standards under SB9, which is like, I don't even know why someone has proposed that, because that seems nuts. Steve, you had some more to say.
Yeah, just about the missing middle. If the reason why the grant was funded was because of their interest in missing middle, it strikes me as very odd that during
Yes.
focus groups, missing middle was at least not part of our focus group discussion. It wasn't the topic and it didn't really come up. So I don't know if it did at the HPOZ board focus group, but then, it makes me question, what is the purpose of the focus group if it's nothing else than to say they check the box on focus group and community outreach, and they already have a plan of what they're going to do. They're just not sharing it.
Well, I will say, because again, I did the public records request for SCAG, Southern California Association of Governments. One of the requirements is outreach. They had put outreach as meaning the planning department in their initial application had a section for outreach, but it was for community plans. Because, because you can imagine you have to do a lot of outreach when you do community plans. When the community plans portion was eliminated from, as they were massaging the grant, when SCAG eliminated it, SCAG suggested strongly that they keep the outreach portion, but apply it to this. So there's X amount of money they're supposed to spend on outreach. And it didn't specify what that outreach would be. But what's disappointing is what so far it's not been. They haven't gone to the Plan Check LA, which is the Alliance of Planning and Zoning Committees. You have plum committees around the city. They haven't gone to LANC. They haven't even just sent something overt and direct to all neighborhood councils. They have only presented, the only HPOZ that I'm certain they've presented to is University Park. I cannot say they have not presented to any other HPOZ, but there's been so many canceled meetings of HPOZs the last 3-4 months. They only got the grant. Yeah, they got it maybe in June. In June, they went to City Council to get an approval to sign the MOU for the grant. And when they actually received the grant, I think it was more like September. The MOU was a draft, so the final MOU was not, I didn't get it as part of my request. I know I have to contact SCAG again because the draft may not be the final. But they have not presented to the majority of HPOZs. So
do you mind if we share screen? I can show the timeline that they provided us.
no problem.
And maybe, I don't know that this will answer anything, but maybe we could just, everyone gets on the same page regarding the timeline. And we can nip that one in the bud. Okay.
Your co-host.
Thank you. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
Okay, so November was the project kickoff as you described. December was the background review. January, they have focus groups. They said they were going to do 4 and 7 days. These focus groups included citywide preservation folks, so that included Jean and me and LA Conservancy. As you said, design professionals, and then housing advocates and developers. February is planning on releasing a questionnaire that will be available online and holding the first community workshop.
Except for they're going to already have a first draft. So they're doing a first draft before having any real public outreach.
Their final draft of the ODS for HPOZs is due on March 20 this year.
Yeah, but I'm seeing in February, they're presenting their first draft. So they're presenting a first draft before they're doing public outreach.
That begs the question that they already have what they want. And this process that we are discussing is checking a box.
Yep.
They'll have the final draft of the objective design standards in March. Then they'll have a second community workshop to present the final draft. I had asked whether that final draft then would be subject to change as a result of that community workshop. And of course, Mr. Buari had no answer. And then there'll be city-led public hearings and blah, blah, blah. So this is the timeline.
Right. So it's very concerning. I mean, basically, it's just very concerning. And I just don't understand how we would not have at least received an acknowledgement that said, yep, we got your letter. So I know, I mean, I understand they don't want to do it, but
my experience with OHR, I only get a response if I keep bugging them.
Right. But I don't think a neighborhood council should be bugging anybody, but I guess I might have to.
Why not? You're going to be treated the same as I am, so you might as well.
Yeah, but we're supposed to be, we're supposed to be empowered to help empower the citizenry to comment to, city departments and not just elected officials.
Right,
Anyway.
but the only way you can empower the community is by getting the city to respond to your requests.
Yeah, or just say, got your letter, not gonna respond. I mean,
Anyway.
you know.
I
Anyway,
know there's other old business that we want to attend to, and I hope Hakeem will stick around for it.
is there? Does anybody have other old business?
I actually have to log off. Thank you for the invite, and
Thank you, Hakeem.
you know, these are rare appearances and I have to get
I
ready
do.
for some things.
And we don't want
tomorrow.
to whine too much in front of you.
It's all love, but I'll talk to you guys soon, and I hope to come back sometime soon with a better update.
Thank you.
Real quick, before you jump off, Hakeem, that's the only old business that we have that we, we'd love to have your input on, perhaps at a future meeting or offline, is just the 2 liquor related issues that we have on Jefferson Boulevard.
Yeah,
Between Arlington and Prescott Court. There is our liquor store that I know you're very, very familiar with. They're not complying with their conditions, so that's a project for us to work on.
Thank you.
And also the conditional use beverage permit application for 2131 West Jefferson that I've been emailing
the
you
museum?
about.
that's a museum, right?
Yes,
Yeah, because they have an April 1.
the file will be open until April 1st, so.
And they have not reached out to us at all.
Or me.
Okay,
I haven't let it slip.
all right.
But we'll talk
Yeah.
soon, okay, everybody?
That would be
Thank
great. Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you. So the only other old business, which is really, really old business and about to be new business, is for sure at our next meeting, which is Wednesday, February 4, 5, whatever Wednesday, first Wednesday is. We will have a presentation about it's just about finished, Thomas Saffer and Associates project at Washington and 4th Avenue. They will come with the photos and everything else. And I'm going to ask the unrelated other developers of the project on St. Andrews, which is another affordable housing project. They are also almost done. And so I just think it'd be good to have both presentations at the same meeting, if I can arrange that. But they're gonna come with photos, tell us why it's different than what we had originally approved. It has to do with the oil, cleaning up the site and keeping parts of it open. What they'll tell us the efforts that they've gone through all this time for the environmental cleanup.
Haven't they already built the project?
Yes, but a letter just went out last week to people, including Michael, myself, Michael Solomon, myself, from the not Dogger, but one of those organizations about the cleanup. So they're going to explain why that letter just went out.
After the project's done?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. And when people are going to be able to start to move in, and are there any vacant, there's certain group, I'm not sure, but it sounds like there's still the ability in some manner to apply, but not completely, because there's different
Okay.
units.
I just want to publicly acknowledge the hard work that Michael Salmon, this committee, and UNNC did to make that happen in collaboration with then councilperson Herb Wesson. Without Michael's leadership, I don't think that ever would have happened.
Yeah. Well, I'm why I want both projects, I'll be honest, both projects wouldn't have happened without UNNC, different leaders.
Yes.
John Arnold on the other one. Michael Kimbrough.
Yeah, any update on, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, any update on the project at 10th and Washington? With the water heaters on the balconies? And
Yeah,
all
the
that?
update is that Isaiah seems to have approved it. So I will reach out to Isaiah tomorrow and ask him if there's anything further to say about those water heaters, and more importantly, equally importantly, why the final building does not match the approved plans.
Right.
Because, among other things, where the water heaters were not on the approved plans.
Right.
So, and neither was the teal green stucco. Because it was supposed to be brick. Maybe not, not old fashioned brick, but
Facade.
gray, charcoal, gray brick to be in keeping as described on their own project application with the streetcar commercial designs of Washington Boulevard, which hardly teal green painted stucco does not. Anyway. It's only paint, it's only a color, it could be a different color at some point, but the brick is not there. So. Anything else? It's 8:07. I'm happy to say if we can adjourn.
Groovy.
Yeah. Groovy, okay. So I always say the words out loud.